was talking about the 45th and the number of capital. They don't have, the rest of the city. Good morning. The November the 4th, 2015 meeting of the Board of Estimate is now called to order. Madam, first of all, in the interest of promoting the order and efficiencies of these hearings, persons who are disruptive to the hearing will be asked to leave the hearing room. Meetings of the Board of Estimates are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. The hearing room must be vacated at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Madam Deputy Controller, are there any corrections, additions, or deferrals on the agenda?
Good morning. For today's agenda, the board received protests for page 64, item number 9, from Toter LLC. That item will be moving to the non-routine agenda. The board received a protest for pages 64 to 65, item number 12, from P&J Contracting Company, Inc. That item, page 64 to 65, number 12, will move to the non-routine agenda. The board also received a protest from Ms. Kim Trueheart for all items on the agenda on pages 1 to 91. The board did review Ms. Trueheart's protest, however, it will not be heard. We have one item that is being deferred for 1 week, and that is page 50. I have the following abstentions and no votes to report. The Honorable Mayor Rawlins Blake will abstain on page 15, item number 3. The Honorable President Young will abstain on page 15, item number 3, and page 58. The Honorable President Young will also be voting no on pages 56 to 57. The Honorable Comptroller Pratt will abstain on page 5, page 48, item 17, page 61, item number 3, page 64, item number 9, and pages 64 to 65, item number 12. Mr. George Nilsson will abstain on page 22, item number 2, and on page 23, number 1. And again, the items that will be on the non-routine agenda are pages 64, number 9, and pages 64 to 65, number 12. Mr. President, members of the board, those are the protests received, the one item being deferred, the abstentions, as well as the no votes that have been reported. Thank you.
Thank you. I will direct the board members' attention to the memorandum from our office dated November the 2nd, 2015, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with any corrections and additions that have been noted by the Deputy Controller. I will entertain the motion to approve all of the items contained on the routine agenda.
Move approval of all items on the routine agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carried. The routine agenda has been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 64, item number 9. Recommendation for contract awards rejection, B50004267, rollout containers with RFID. Will the parties please come forward? Okay.
Board is requested to approve an award of solicitation B50004267 rollout containers with RFID. I'm Tim Krust, the city purchasing agent. The award is to Schaefer Systems International for $8,940,727.50.
You want to come up and state your name? And
Good morning, members of the board. My name is James Pickett. I'm Vice President of Sales for Toter LLC from Statesville, North Carolina. By introduction, we're the current supplier of the city's refuse cart pilot program that was implemented in 2014. As a responsive bidder to this bid, we have filed a protest simply on the grounds that the recommended bid included confusing and contradictory information about the products. The company, Schaefer Systems Incorporated, included information on a product line that they introduced approximately 1990 and routinely sell. Also included literature on a new product line They introduced approximately 2010. The bid required submission of color literature on the exact product bid, product specifications, and American National Standards Institute, or ANSI, test data for those carts, which is routine in this industry. The bid that we reviewed at the bid opening and then received a copy of from the purchasing department shows that the literature shows a 2010 era cart bid by photograph on the color literature, yet the ANSI specs were dated 1998 and 1999, which is the previous brand of cart made by Schaefer, and the product specs were dated 2004, again for the previous line of carts. So frankly, we're confused at what was being bid, and we find it in our opinion, that makes the bid non-responsive because instead of bidding one product, there's a mix of two, and I'm not aware of how it might have been determined which product Schaefer did in fact bid by any method other than having to ask them after the fact. And in our opinion, if they were asked after the fact, once they knew the pricing from the public bid opening, they were given a second shot at a bid that, in our understanding, is a one-time event based on what is proposed at the time of the bid opening.
Tim Cross, Bureau of Purchases. We took a careful look at all the specifications and standards that were submitted in the Schaefer bid. In collaboration with the Department of Public Works, we were not confused about what we saw. ANSI, or American National Standards Institute standards, can last for a very long time. ANSI 1999 standards were applicable here, and we are convinced that the products bid by Schaefer Systems were compliant with that. The city is able to seek clarification about products during the evaluation process. It's clearly stated in the solicitation that an offeror agrees to provide samples upon request during the evaluation process for inspection and/or testing, or make them locally available for inspection if too large to reasonably and easily deliver. Schaefer Systems provided sample products to both the Bureau of Purchases and the Department of Public Works for evaluation during this period. Schaefer Systems is here today if you need to hear anything further from them.
Okay.
If I may, I go back to, there's no doubt that Schaefer Systems is a regular manufacturer of products. It's no doubt that they've got two product lines. And from the documents I included in our protest, it's clear that they mixed the product information in the bid, and it's our contention that that should have been correct at the time of the bid, and that their opportunity then to clarify later had the benefit of knowing the prices that were bid by other companies. And our company and two or three of the other bidders have multiple product lines. None of these companies submitted confusing bids for mixed product information. And our only point is we believe that makes their bid non-responsive.
Tim Cross, Bureau of Purchases. The only clarification that we did was to have Schaefer submit actual samples of the products for both the Bureau of Purchases and the Department of Public Works to review. We did not ask them to give us different information as it applied to their submission.
Okay.
I just have one, and there's, I know that we were able to move forward with the citywide distribution based on the pilot. Is there any reason, any red flags, any concerns that the products that that we're supplying for the citywide rollout would be inconsistent with what we use in the pilot, or not be able to meet what we're saying as our stated goal of being able to supply an effective citywide municipal trash can program?
Madam Mayor, we do not have any concerns in the Bureau of Purchases. Department of Public Works might wish to answer that as well.
You gotta come up.
And don't
state
forget you
your
have to
name.
give your name. I'm sorry.
No, Madam Mayor.
State your name.
No, state your name.
Sorry. Valentina Yokwama, Head Bureau of Solid Waste. No, Madam Mayor, we don't think so.
Just explain what you mean.
What I mean, based on the sample that they got and the sample that we had, there may be maybe slight variations, but we think both of them will still be able to withstand what we're trying to accomplish, which is a durable, tight-fitting can for the citizens of Baltimore.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, my last comment was, again, the ability to even submit a sample after having submitted essentially partial bids for two different products. We think it constitutes what you might call a do-over, that once the prices are disclosed, they know what the competitors have offered, delivery times, and so on. They've benefited from information at a public bid opening that was not available to them when they should have submitted a complete and clear bid.
As I said earlier, the offerer agrees to provide samples upon request during the evaluation process. That language clearly written in the solicitation. There is no problem whatsoever with asking for those samples.
I'll entertain a motion.
Based on the language of the solicitation and the information provided by Mr. Kress, I move approval of the recommendation of Bureau of Purchases.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. The second item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 64 to 65, item 12. Recommendation for contract awards rejection, B50004150, Baltimore City Building Demolition. Will the parties please come forward?
I thought he'd forgotten about us.
Good morning.
Tim Kress, Bureau of Purchases. This is the award of solicitation number B504150, Baltimore City Building Demolition, to two bidders, K&K Adams, Inc. and P&J Contracting, Inc., for a total of $11,692,424.50.
Good morning, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, Mr. Nielsen, other members of the board. This is, my name is Robert DeShiel. I represent P&J Contractors, one of the two vendors selected for award of this contract. And this is kind of an unusual protest because we're not actually challenging the selection of the other contractor. We are, in fact, insisting that the award be made on the basis of the contractor's bid as submitted, as opposed to as it may have been modified. If you look at the chart that's attached to the protest that I submitted, you will see that there is a discrepancy between the total price indicated in K&K's bid and the total price that's arrived at by actually using the unit prices that are set forth in the bid. The bid specifications, using Mr. Crush's word, clearly provide that unit prices control and that total price will be adjusted in accordance with the unit prices. If you do that, the total price that's submitted by K&K is not what's claimed, $5,736,479.50. In fact, it's $2,197,882.90. As long as the award to K&K is made based upon his actual unit prices, we don't care. But what we don't want is for someone after the fact to allow K&K to adjust its unit prices to fit its total price when the bid document says it's supposed to happen in exactly the reverse order. Now you might say, well, why is this important to P&J since it's going to get potentially some of the work anyway? Well, it's very important because as the second bidder, P&J only gets work if K&K rejects it or if K&K for some reason is not selected. The fact of the matter is, if K&K is required to do the work at its bid price, we think it's very likely that it's going to reject the work and it's going to result in more work for P&J. It's just that simple. You can't do something for 82 cents for every 100 cubic yards if it really, 82 cents for every 100 cubic yards, cubic feet, whatever it is. You can't do it for 82 cents if it really costs you $82. You just can't. So that means more likely than not you're gonna ask to be excused from the bid. Now and that's not the kind of mistake. It's not minor. It's not something that the bidder can be permitted to correct after the fact. It's a unilateral mistake. There's no mistake in the bid documents. There's no confusion about the units or the quantities that prices are requested on. And so under those circumstances, legally, the only relief that a bidder's entitled to is the opportunity to withdraw its bid. You're not entitled to the opportunity to change your bid after the fact. And so, and the reason I think that may have happened here, because you can't tell from the agenda item as it appears, but if you look at the agenda, the page that talks about the minority participation, I deduce from the numbers that are stated there, the dollar values, that those dollar values could only be arrived at if you in fact use the adjusted unit prices and not the unit prices that are actually in the bid. Now, I could be wrong. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not, but it's possible. But but that's the only way you could get those dollar values is if you adjusted the unit prices first. And we think that's wrong. We think that's illegal. We think that's contrary to the bid documents. And all we're asking is that give it to him, but give it to him at the price he bid and not at the adjusted price after the bid. Thank you.
Tim Cross, Bureau of Purchases. The unit prices were bid in the multiple of hundreds. K&K Adams merely misplaced the decimal points. The extended bid prices as well as the total bid prices were absolutely correct. And we do have the ability, and have many times in the past, determined on our own without having to get clarification from the bidder that the actual unit price intended was carried out throughout the entire bid. The precedent that we work on is if upon the face of a bid without any outside evidence, you can clearly see that a mistake was made and can also clearly see what the bidder really intended, you should read this bid according to their real intention. This was clearly 82 cents where it should have been $82. The $82 was reflected in the amounts on each line of the bid. The correct calculation for $82 was reflected on each line of the bid, and the correct calculation with $82 was reflected in the total amount of the bid.
I should add that the language that Mr. Kress just used to describe the circumstances under which we're being guided by here, that language goes back to a city solicitor's opinion that is 102 years old, before either Mr. DeShiel or I walked the planet or were a gleam in anybody's eye, and it's been consistently applied ever since. And I quote, "If upon the face of a bid, without any outside evidence, you can clearly see that a mistake was made and can also clearly see what the bidder really intended, you should read this bid according to this real intention." And that's exactly what we're doing here.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not nearly as clairvoyant as either you or Mr. Cross. I don't know that .82 didn't mean 8.2 as opposed to 82 point. That is the point. It is not obvious unless the conclusion you reach is the only one you could come to. Where there are multiple conclusions, it didn't have to be $82. It could have been $8.20. Somebody decided to make it $82. That is an after-the-fact change. I mean, look, either the bid documents are going to be applied and enforced. Now, it clearly has a mistake. That's not the issue. That is not the issue. The issue is the bid documents say unit prices control. You don't go to the total price and then back into the unit price. That's which is what you're suggesting can be done here, because that's the only way you can do it. But that's not what the document says. The document says the unit price is control. And there's no way you can look at that and say that number should have been $82 versus $8.20 versus .825 or whatever you conclude. You just can't do that. It's a mistake. It's an unfortunate mistake. But the fact of the matter is the law is clear. You cannot allow a unilateral mistake to change or alter the ultimate bid price. And that's, and the only thing that's consistent here is that when this mistake happened some years ago involving a firm that you have so familiar with, which was Potts and Callahan, you took exactly the position that I'm arguing for today. You threw the bid out because they had misplaced the decimal point, and no one at that time was willing to move it for them. I'm done.
Madam Mayor.
Two questions. I don't know if the Potts and Callahan bid that Mr. DeShiel mentioned was referenced in his protest, so I don't know if you have information about
I do not.
that. So I'll go just directly to the question at hand. Based on the 102-year-old opinion from the city solicitor, where it says that you can clearly see based on the information, what information are you basing the determination that it was an error of basically a typo?
We have a quantity that we put on the pricing page of the solicitation.
Mm-hmm.
So on one line that I'm looking at, that quantity is 34,320 cubic feet.
Mm-hmm.
Then we ask for a unit cost and a total dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
The unit cost says 82 cents. The total dollar amount is $2,814,240,000 on that line.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that you get to $2,814,240 is with an $82 in the unit cost. So there is no way that could have been $8.20.
Is there any way to get to that number with any of the numbers that Mr. DeShields mentioned?
No, certainly not $8.20, which is the other number Mr. DeShiel has mentioned. The only way that you get to the exact total amount by line and the total in the solicitation is moving the decimal point 2 places to the right for $82, and then all of the math in the solicitation works all the way up to the total amount bid. And what this is doing is essentially putting K&K Adams in a first call position on this contract. P&J and K&K Adams have been on this contract for a very long time. P&J has traditionally won the first call. This is the first time that K&K Adams has won the first call.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to let Mr. Jones speak. The manner in which Mr. Crust determined it is exactly the problem. You're not supposed to determine the unit price by taking the total price and dividing it by the quantities given. It's supposed to go the reverse order. According to the bid document, you do it in exactly the reverse order. You're supposed to adjust the total price based upon the unit price, not the reverse. And the only way you can get the unit price is exactly as he said. You start with the total price and divide it by the quantities. Then you can come up with a unit price that makes sense. But that's not what the bid document says you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do it the reverse order. Now, if you're going to disregard that, fine. But don't say, you can't stand here and say you're doing it the proper way based on a 100-year-old legal principle. Legal principles have to be applied based upon the facts that you're applying them to. Standing out there alone, they mean nothing until they're applied to a particular set of facts.
I'm just curious, when you say that it could be $8 and something, what are you basing that on?
I'm basing it on the fact that if you move the decimal point 1 point, you got $8.20. You move it 2 points, you get $82. You take it as is, you got 82 cents.
Well, but you said by saying that, you're suggesting that by making it $8, you come up with the same number.
No. I am disregarding the total price completely because I believe that's what the bid document requires. I believe that the bid document requires that you adjust the total price based upon the unit prices, not the reverse. So in arriving at my total price, I use the 82 cents as there. Mm-hmm. I was just responding to Mr. Crust's argument that 82 cents necessarily means $82. Mm-hmm. He can only say that if he starts with the total price already in hand.
Is the if I may?
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
Is the correct price anywhere in the document?
The correct extended price is throughout the document and consistent. The only inconsistency is the 82 cents rather than $82.
But they're using the total price throughout.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Correct. Only on the bid price sheet where you actually make the calculation can you see that the only way that the totals work out by line and for the total of the solicitation is by using $82 rather than 82 cents.
Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Mayor, members of the board. You treading.
What's your name first?
Plus B. Jones, Senior President of P&J Contracting. The board has never looked at a bid this way, and you're opening up new grounds. Let's say I bidded a contract to do sidewalk by the square feet, and I put in my unit price $7. Now I can make a mistake in the multiplication, but the unit price cannot be changed. In this bid, it clearly states A times B equals C, meaning the quantities times the unit price you put down equals the total. None of the extended prices is correct. Now, the Bureau of Purchase was supposed to multiply the unit price times the quantity and come up with a total. They didn't do that. They decided to change the unit price. You can never change a contractor's unit price. If you do, I can bid $7 and then it come back, look, we want to change to $9 because that can't be changed, okay? The same as this can't be changed. I mean, it's the principle that you're going to draw a line and people going to start changing prices. You can't do that.
Well, what you're doing, you're inviting contractors to deliberately introduce a discrepancy between the unit price and the total. I get two. In effect, I get two bites of the apple because I can put in the correct or incorrect unit price. But if I know you're gonna back into my unit price by looking at my total price, then I put a total price in that's completely unrelated. As long as you can get to it by using a multiple of the unit price that I use. That's why the bid document says that you use the unit price to determine the total price and not the reverse. You can always, by using math, get to a unit price by dividing the total price by the quantities. We know that. But the reason that the unit price, Madam Mayor, never changes throughout this bid. The correct unit price that Mr. Crush uses is nowhere in this bid at all. Nowhere in the bid did the bidder use $82. It's 82 cents everywhere you look.
The unit cost in the price sheet in the solicitation says unit cost dollars per 100 cubic feet. We determined that when the vendor put in 82 cents, he was putting in a price per cubic foot rather than per 100 cubic feet. And based on looking at the way that calculation extended and the other totals in the bid, we determined that $82 was indeed the unit price.
And Potts and Callahan did that before, exact, identical, same thing, and they withdraw their bid because the city said we're going to have to give it to you at your unit price.
Michael Schrock, Baltimore City Law Department. I can't really comment on what the city's done over the last 30 years, but I can say, even though this doesn't control, the state of Maryland does allow a confirmation of bid, which seems similar to this situation before us. I'll give you all this, and also the case I'm going to cite from the MSBCA. If you look at the Comar 210502-12, a confirmation of a bid, basically this talks about mistakes discovered before opening of the, mistakes discovered when you get the bid. If the procurement officer knows or has reason to conclude that a mistake has been made, the bidder may be requested to confirm the bid. Situations in which confirmation should be requested include obvious, apparent errors on the face of the bid or a bid unreasonably lower than the other bids submitted. If the bidder alleges a mistake, the bid may be corrected or withdrawn upon written approval of the Office of Attorney General if any of the following conditions are met. The first one states the condition, if the mistake and the intended correction are clearly evident on the face of the bid document, the bid shall be corrected to the intended correct bid and may not be withdrawn. Examples of mistakes that may be clearly evident on the face of a bid document are typographical errors, errors in extending unit prices, and so forth. That's what we're talking about here, and there's actually a case, MSBCA 230, which I have given to the other side, Flippo Construction Company, Inc., where this has actually happened, where the protestant said in the bid documents there are conditions in there that said, in this case it was more talking about lump sum prices, but they also talk about other conditions in bids such as like unit prices, where the first thing is you have to say, is there obvious error, an obvious mistake? If that's the case, you don't even get into revising the document based on those general conditions where unit prices control. It's obvious, and you can see from the face of the document. So the procurement official does have the right to confirm the bid and make that correction. And we've seen that the total award is not changing. It's clear what the total award, what the vendor wanted. They just made a mistake in the math. I mean, if we went to the IRS, we filled out an IRS form, and you do the calculations. You go to the IRS table, and it says you own $5,000 in taxes. You put down $5,000 in taxes due to the IRS. The IRS takes your paper form that you submit, looks at all the little things you filled out. You made some mistakes in there in the calculations. I think you're still paying $5,000. You're not paying $2,500 because they're going to revise based on your mistakes and make you pay $2,500. No, you're paying $5,000. So that's all I had to say.
Okay, anything else?
Well, you want to give me a chance to read the case and the regulation, or do I stand here?
I just asked you, did you have anything else, Mr. DeShiel?
I would say this. There is no, the evidence relating to how this change occurred, so far as I know, has not been presented to the board. This situation starts off talking about a bidder may correct mistakes discovered before the time of bid, and then he goes into if the procurement officer knows or has reason to conclude. We've been presented with no evidence that there was ever any request to the bidder to correct anything. I don't know when this happened. I don't know who made the determination, and I don't know how they determined that $82 versus $8.20. In other words, the case, I haven't even read it, but I guarantee you that the correction in this case was the only other option that there was after you discovered the mistake. It was not a situation where there were multiple options available. So no matter this whole process is so utterly lacking in transparency here. The word has become fashionable these days. But this whole process is so utterly lacking in transparency and so utterly full of the opportunity for mischief because of these options that nobody knows about. That this even the business of presenting a case and a COMAR regulation at 9:35 on the day of the argument. This process is wrong. This process is what leads people to have lack of confidence and lack of faith in the integrity of the bidding process itself. No, if I had a contractor, and I've had this happen before, where I've had a contractor submitted a bid that was unreasonably low. I had to jump through hoops to get the city to agree to withdraw the bid. Never did anybody volunteer to change it for him. And that's what's happened here. I mean, you talk about consistency, that's what's inconsistent. And when you do it and who you do it for is the fact that you don't do it on a regular basis, and the COMAR is not in your bid documents. That COMAR provision is not part of the city procurement law. It's not even in your bid documents. There's no reference to it. There's no indication in the bid documents that you will use that as a basis for reference. And ordinarily, when somebody quotes COMAR to you, you turn around and say we're not bound by it. So I don't like repeating myself, so I'm going to shut up.
If I could just respond, Tim Kruss, Bureau of Purchases. There was no mischief involved here. The Bureau of Purchases looked at this submission, made this calculation based on the precedent that we have in the original solicitor's opinion and the kinds of precedents that the Department of Law has brought to the board today in response to the protest that we received yesterday at noon. Everything is in order.
Mr. Jones.
Plus Jones, P&J Contracting. Maybe there's no mysteries, and Keith, we both competitors. We are friends, so it's not against Keith. It's against the process. And I've called the Bureau of Purchase many times. They would not even discuss with me. I called them yesterday because it wasn't on the agenda yet. And they could have said to me, okay, this is how we see it. Okay, and if I agree, I agree. But they wouldn't even communicate at any time. And when you talk to the people in Bureau of Purchase, it acts like they were afraid to talk about it. So they make it seem like it was something going on. So that's the way I'm here today.
There was no fear involved in that. We do not discuss with vendors what is going on in our deliberative process when we are assembling a response to a protest. That protest was received by the deadline. We had a limited amount of time to work through that, and we do not negotiate with vendors what we're going to say during that process.
This was before the protest because I wasn't going to protest. This was before the protest that you wouldn't give any information. You had already analyzed your bid. It was supposed to be going on the website. Okay, so you make it, it's not transparent with the Bureau of Purchase, okay? And not just this case, but there's many cases, okay, that's not transparent.
This is the way our process has worked for decades.
But you was negotiating
in terms of solicitation.
You was negotiating for K&K because you changed the unit price. He didn't change them.
We were not negotiating for K&K.
Nobody else did negotiation.
We were doing what we needed to do. We were doing what we needed to do as part of the procurement evaluation process based on what we saw as our obligation to determine whether or not this bid could go forward in the best interest of the city.
Did you call K&K and let him know that you was going to change the unit price? Did somebody from your department do that?
We made the change. We didn't change the unit price. We calculated what this was going to be and determined that only a unit price calculation of $82 would work in this formula.
So you changed the unit price. Instead of 82 cents, you made it $82. That's how you came to the calculation. Therefore, you're negotiating for K&K, and you changed his number. You bidding for him.
We had a specific way that we carried this out. We looked at the extended price. We looked at the total price of the bid, and on face value, $82 was the price.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Crest. Based on item number one, where it say A1, 34,320 CF times 82 cents. Then it equals $2,814,240.
Correct.
So that's what you based it on.
Correct. So if
No, he did not.
in the,
No, wait a minute.
may
wait a
show you,
minute. I'm
Mr.
just
President,
asking
the actual
question.
sheet.
Okay.
So that's the actual bid sheet. And the first line that you see is the line that you're talking about, right,
Right.
where the yellow arrow is.
Right.
If
So
you put $82, if you move that decimal point 2 places to the right,
came up to the 2
it
million.
comes to exactly the extended amount there, which is consistent with the total amount of the bid.
Okay. So this, if it was 82 cent, it would equal to the $28,142.
Correct. You would see the calculation that Mr. Jones has
which
presented.
would have meant that each one of those trash cans would have been 82 cents.
Well,
Yes.
actually, this is cubic feet of building
Right. Mhm.
demolition. Correct.
Okay, demolition. All right. Okay. Mr. Chow.
Mr. Cross, will you say the 82 cents for 100 cubic yard is a reasonable price?
No, it is not.
Would you say the bid amount, the $2,814,240, a reasonable price?
It is.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more? I entertain a motion.
I move that we deny the protest and accept the recommendation of Bureau of Purchases on this item.
There you go.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. There being no more business before the board, the meeting will recess until bid opening at 12 noon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. The Board of Estimates is now in session for the receiving and opening of bids. I have one addendum to read for today. TR 10318, rehabilitation of roadways around East Baltimore Life Science Park Phase 2A. Please change the bid due date from November 4th to November the 18th, 2015.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
WC 1301R, on-call large water main repairs. A bid bond is required if the amount is over $100,000. Spiniello Companies, with a bid bond. $12,563,300. J. Fletcher Kramer and Son, Inc., with a bid bond. $15,898,840. R.E. Harrington Plumbing and Heating Company, Inc., with a bid bond. $12,104,100. Anchor Construction Corp., with a bid bond. $11,376,185.24. Metra Industries, with a bid bond. $13,813,175.
Refer these bids to the Department of Public Works for tabulation and report.
B50004299. OEM parts and service for Fuso Mitsubishi trucks. A bid bond is not required. $1,452,000. I'm sorry, thank you. I'd like to give the name of the company. The company is Waste Equipment Sales and Service, LLC. The amount is $1,452,000. Thank you. the American Truck and Equipment Company, $1,708,250.
Refer these bids to the Bureau of Purchases for tabulation and report.
B50004338, furnace and install carpet and floor tile. A bid bond is not required. JB Contracting Inc., $428,333. Tito Contractors Inc., $651,249.16. L&R Enterprises, trading as L&R Floors, $315,302.50. JD Carpets Inc., $407,476.25. Jostes, Jostes Carpet Inc., $599,850.
Refer these bids to the Bureau of Purchases for tabulation and report.
B50004351, Truck Accessories. A bid bond is not required. A&A Auto Parts Store, Inc.
Is that a trade name?
I'm sorry, let me see. Do you have something that says 4630 Broadway Street, Building E?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's the only thing I see here. Here's an envelope for this company. But how do we know? We need something that shows us this Keystone. Because mine says A&A.
Yeah, that could be A&A,
He's
but
gonna
it's a
bring it-
different address.
We'll bring us an envelope. Alrighty. Mm-mm. This one's Allentown, Pennsylvania. Exeter's, Pennsylvania.
Allentown, Pennsylvania. This is Pittston, and it's Keystone Automotive.
Because they have different addresses.
Yeah, these are Maryland. That's in Pennsylvania.
This must be it, yeah. That's the only difference.
I think it was an email address that was the one.
The other ones are all Maryland. Okay. All right, we have two names here. Keystone
Yes.
Automotive.
Okay. I have that.
Okay. I'm going to also read the name that's on the bid because I'm not sure the relationship.
Okay.
Keystone Automotive and A&A Auto Parts Store, Inc. $102,352.94. Okay, I'll give you that one. The next one. Acres Automotive, Inc. $169,450. Edgewater Tire, doing business as Admiral Tire. $148,274.
Refer these bids to the Bureau of Purchases for tabulation and report.
There being no further business, we are adjourned.